up, guys? Daiwa Ryoga. Got a tabletop following this. Just wanted to give you the synopsis first. Guys, I've been fishing the Ryoga here for the past 5 weeks since the start of the season. And it's everything that I expected it to be. Did a lot of homework before buying it. The Ryoga is the cousin, it's the JDM cousin of the domestic version of this reel, which was the Daiwa Pluton, which got canceled some time ago. And these fall in line kind of with the Shimano Calcutta, or you know, kind of that high-end round bait caster, and that's exactly what this is. This one here is a 10-16, which actually has kind of like a 100 size spool, and it's a really sweet reel, guys. I've caught a number of big fish on it so far. I got my personal best on this, 6.6, a couple of 5s. You know, I'm doing this swim bait fishing the East Coast thing, and this is bringing them in. You know, and a lot of people talk about a reel like, oh, and it's still holding up. Well, of course it's still hold up. I mean, maybe 6-7 years from now I might have problems, but you know, I would be very upset if the reel had any issues right out of the box this first season or even the second season, regardless of what size fish I'm catching. It's really comfortable in hand. This particular version, the 10-16, is very small in hand for a round reel. It's really compact. It's quite the looker. It's all aluminum. It's what do I want to say? CNC'd out of one piece of aluminum, one billet block of aluminum. It's just quite a nice design. You got your mag force adjustability here on the side, so you can turn that. Hope you guys can see that. Okay. And then the usual cast controller, drag star, and all that other stuff. But really, what separates this is it's like, well, I'm just reminding myself now, the Calcutta Conquest. They're in the same kind of ballpark. Guys, I'm not going to tell you that it's going to cast twice as far, because it doesn't. I have other reels that I've brought in sizable fish on. It doesn't make it really, I don't say any easier. But if you're looking for a round reel, and if you're just looking for that special piece of equipment to add to your arsenal, the Ryoga is an excellent choice if you're a Daiwa fan. If you're a Shimano fan, those Conquests are awesome too. But that's pretty much it, guys. I've just really been enjoying it. It's super smooth, as you would expect. It's 12 ball bearings, 12 anti-rust ball bearings. Just great. Everything about it has just been fantastic, and I'm very happy with my purchase here. So following this, as you can see, for how much time is left in the video, following this is the full tabletop review. I did that review before I actually fished it, and I was just going off of everything I had read from other people, other owners and forums and other videos. But I wanted to put together a comprehensive video on the Ryoga. So real nice reel, guys, and if you want to hang around for the tabletop, where, you know, if you've ever seen my videos, I go into crazy detail on every last little thing, that's coming up next. Thanks for watching. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the video, and welcome to Keeping It Real Fishing. I'd like to show you the Daiwa Ryoga baitcast reel. This is a JDM reel. It was never sold here in the United States. That's a Japanese domestic market. It's a really sweet reel. It's like a gem of a reel. It is Daiwa's flagship effort in a small, round bait caster. And it's got a lot of really cool features on it, and I'd like to walk through it with you and show you what this reel offers. Alright, everybody, let's take a look at the box and see what you get with it. Daiwa Ryoga 10-16 HL. That stands for high speed left, the HL. On the back, there's our capacities. You can see at 16 pounds, you're looking at about 100 meters of line, which is not bad considering that this is a very compact reel. And fans of Daiwa who are familiar with their designations might realize that this is a 100 size spool. So it's a pretty generous size spool for a very compact reel. You can see that this model here is the 6.3 to 1. That's the high speed model. It was also offered in a slower speed, which I want to say was about a 5.1 to 1, a little bit torquier. Inside the box, we have, actually I just took this out, this did come inside of it. This is Daiwa's high-speed oil. It's very, very low viscosity, and this is for the spool bearings, and the spool bearings only. It's a very, very thin oil. We also have the general instructions, and everything is going to be in Japanese in here, guys. But you have the universal language, which is pictures. But there's nothing overly complicated. It's pretty straightforward. If you know how to use a baitcaster, you could use this. It's just showing you some lubrication points. Maybe some different things would be how to take off the knobs. These are removable knobs. But pretty straightforward. You have the parts breakdown sheet, the exploded view, so you can see everything that's in the reel, as well as the order in which to assemble it, if you were to take it apart and service it yourself. And then lastly, we have, I'm pretty sure this is the warranty card. Okay. We also get a bag. This is kind of a felt bag from Daiwa. It's pretty cool. I guess they do this with some of their higher end reels. And over here we have a little symbol with the Reel 4 designation. And this is a kind of an ideology. They throw this on some of their higher models. Each one of those little circles refers to an attribute or a characteristic of the reel. And as you can imagine, it's, you know, has something to do with it being smooth, being robust, having a connected feeling, stuff like that. They use this marketing over in Japan, and I want to say Australia too. And yeah, they do it on their spinning and casting reels, the Reel 4 designation. Before I put this away, let me just speak to maybe one of your main concerns is buying a reel. If you've ever considered buying a reel from outside of the United States, there's a lot of cool options out there, and you might be apprehensive. And probably the biggest question is going to be, well, what happens if something breaks? Am I going to be screwed? You know, at least if I'm here, I can send it off for repair service, but, you know, what am I going to do? Well, you do have options. One option is if you're comfortable taking apart your reels, right? If you guys are mechanically inclined, if you're already servicing your current reels, then you should be good to go. You can take it apart and do what you need to do in terms of regular servicing. It's not going to be any different. If something should break, though, this becomes a very important sheet, and you can reference the particular part that you need. And there's many Japanese resellers. I'll just mention Japan Tackle because I've dealt with them in the past, and they're very, very good. They're very accommodating. Even if you didn't buy the reel from them, simply contact them, shoot them an email, whatever, and let them know what you have and what you're trying to do. If you've identified a piece that's broken and you need to replace it, beyond that, if you don't want to open up your reels, if you just want to, you know, give it to somebody at the end of the season or every couple of years, whatever the case may be, some of these Japanese sites will also accommodate you. And I can only speak for Japan Tackle, again, because actually they lay it out plainly on their website. They have a section which describes it. They will act as a mediary. And you can take your warranty card, which is not going to do you much here, but you contact them, and they will arrange to have, you will ship your reel to them, and through them they'll send it to Daiwa Japan or Shimano Japan and have it serviced for you. They also even offer options that they will just service it themselves. It depends if you want to go through the factory or they can do it in-house. So you're really covered. The only downside is you have to pay the shipping over there, which is not too bad. And you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. They say on their site, you know, give it about 4 to 6 weeks. But that's not too bad, because I know even domestically, if you return a reel kind of in the prime of the off-season during the winter, you're getting the same estimate of about 4 to 6 weeks. So, guys, if there's anything that you see overseas and it just really floats your boat, you see a reel or a piece of equipment you like, don't feel too apprehensive about getting it. The buying procedure is a simple buying here. You just put it into the shopping cart, click order. Shipping from Japan is actually usually really, really fast. I often get things from there quicker than I've ever, not that I've ever, but I get things here. Most things ship with Japan EMS service, and you're looking at about 3 to 4 days between ordering it and having it on your doorstep. So it's a seamless process, and yeah, you're all set if anything should happen, either, you know, through doing it yourself or sending it back to the reseller to have them take care of you. So, all right, let's move on and let's take a close look at the Daiwa Ryoga. All right, everybody. The Daiwa Ryoga is a mighty fine reel. First, let me just speak to the aesthetics of it. Of course, a reel is a tool. It's a tool for us to fish effectively. And every reel is a little bit different in what it offers and what it can do. But at the end of the day, its job is going to be the same, right? We're trying to cast our lure out and hopefully when we have a strike, reel that fish back in. But in the case of the Ryoga, and there's a lot of reels where there's a lot of styling which has been put into them, this is a decisively high-end reel. It is quite expensive. And Daiwa did pull out all the stops, not only in terms of the build, the construction, and really everything that they've ever put into a reel is employed here, but the styling is made to look very, very good. It's kind of like like a watch, but rather than wearing it on your wrist, you're wearing it on your rod. This one here is machined from a single billet of aluminum, right? You have 3 different ways you can make things. You can cast them, you can forge them, or you can machine them. And because this has a lot of intricate and tight angles, machining is typically the way manufacturers will go when you have a lot of intricate mating surfaces. So this is machined from one solid brick of aluminum. It's pretty cool. It catches the light really nice. It has kind of a nickel silver finish to it, and it's just beautiful. It does remind me of like a very handsome men's watch. It's really nice. Let's start taking a look at the features, working our way from the left. The handle here is relatively short. The crank from point to point here, this is 80 millimeters, which is kind of small actually, considering its intended use. The knobs here, they ride on 2 ball bearings, so they're very smooth. I don't like the knobs themselves though. They're kind of small and slippery. They don't afford you much grip. Interestingly though, I believe that these are Daiwa's, some of their nicer, kind of higher end knobs. I took these off and they're very, very light, and so I think that these are Daiwa's cork knobs that have a laminate put over them, which is kind of like an upgrade knob, but in terms of grip, it's not so great. The next thing we see is a really oversized star drag. You can see just how big that is, and it's just immediately accessible. It just pokes out so far from the reel that you don't have to find it. It's just always there. Speaking of that star drag, anything that you interface with on this reel feels like surgically precise. So of course things click. We see this on a lot of reels now, even entry-level reels. But clicking is really kind of a trickle-down feature, something that used to be reserved for manufacturers' better reels. And it's worked its way down over the years. Actually, it's not expensive to do, but there was a time where we didn't see it in all the reels. But more than just having something click, when you move the star drag on this reel, when you move the cast control, when you depress the clutch, when you reel, when you turn the crank, everything has a feel of absolute solidity and precision. There's zero play in anything, from the knobs to the handle to the drag. It's not like it moves, for a while and then clicks. Everything is super, super tight and close together. I'll even call your attention here to the mechanical cast control. Let's see if I can pick it up. Yes, it says micro pitch. On the other side it says micro pitch mechanical brake. And they think so much as to actually etch it into the piece. This thing here does not move at all. Well, I mean to say there's no play in it, zero play. When you move it enough, though, or when you push it enough, it will finally yield and click. And these are super, super tight together. Now you might say, who cares? What's the big deal? And you're right. This doesn't affect your performance on the water, guys. I wouldn't suggest that. It doesn't make you catch more fish or bigger fish, or it doesn't do anything like that. But it's kind of analogous to a nice watch versus a very inexpensive watch. A nice watch typically doesn't keep better time, but yet people like them. A Mercedes-Benz is going to get you to point B, the same as a Honda Accord, and yet people like them. There's a level of refinement. And again, this is Daiwa's flagship reel. It is their finest effort in a small, freshwater, round baitcaster. It's also rated actually for light inshore duty. It is salt resistant. You can see it has an open spool, but the bearings are the anti-rust bearings on the inside. Speaking of bearings, it employs 12 ball bearings. They're everywhere. It's super, super smooth. And it has that for people who like Daiwas, or maybe some of the people watching who are more enthusiasts, it has what's often referred to as that connected feeling. So super smooth, but you're not removed from the device. You feel connected to the gears. Even if you don't really feel the teeth, there's a feeling of direct connection to it. The gears in this are Daiwa's digi-gears, so that is their best cut that they employ. It's a very, very precise mating of the gears. Let's see here, moving along. The clutch assembly here is very robust. I was doing a little homework, and on the domestic version of this, the US version of this reel, which again was the Pluton, I was reading that that clutch is rated to 6 ounces. And you know, guys, this is a very important stat actually, and it's not something that we see on the box or that the manufacturers provide us, but the rating of the clutch is significant. And most, you know, these round reels, they're going to be throwing heavier baits. You know, we see a lot of swim baits being thrown. 8, 10-inch baits, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7 ounces or more. And while, I'll grab another reel here, while you can chuck big baits on a, you know, on a traditional reel, this is a Corrado, you will feel it. If you have a 3 or 4 ounce bait at the end of the rod and you go to depress the clutch on a reel that's not designed for it, it's going to be hard to do. It's going to feel pretty labored, and there's a reason for that. The mechanism in there, while it will do it, it's not meant to bear that burden of weight repeatedly. You don't want to do that, you know, hundreds or of course thousands of times. It's going to wear it out. And that's one of the reasons that people move to these round reels. They have inherent strength just by their design and the way the gears are employed. But another thing that's often not talked about is the clutch assemblies. They're made to chuck larger baits. These are made for heavy-duty freshwater and saltwater applications. So this guy here, I don't know the spec on it. That Pluton, again, was rated to 6 ounces. I'm not sure on this guy. I'm not sure how many pieces carry over, but I suspect that it does handle a good amount of weight. If we look to the inside, take a look at the line guide, you can see it's actually flailed or flared out. And Daiwa was using one of their vertical line guides here, which is something they used for many years, going back to like the TDZ. And here's a previous generation Zillion. You can see the same type of line guide. But if we look down the center there, it's a little hard to see, it's in the shadow, but the line guide is just straight on either side. Versus on this one, where they actually flare it out to the left and right. So rather than being straight on the Zillion, on this model here, they open up that aperture. So, you know, it's nothing like the T-wing system, but what's happening here, guys, is that every little thing they can kind of modify or improve, even if it's only marginally, they do it. Because it is, you know, they're kind of hanging their hat on this reel, and they want to impress you in any way possible. So, you know, the precision in the clicking, the little thing here, does it add up to real differences on the water? No, not really. But if you're looking for just that really, really refined reel that just feels awesome in hand, these are the things that add up and that you notice when you're using a reel. If we take a look at the bottom, we can see that, of course, it's made in Japan. You can see this reel foot here is riveted to the frame. It's very robust stuff. There's that Reel 4 designation right there. It's really, really nice looking. Here's the Ryoga on the side, and you can see there's the MagForce. I forget, this is MagForce, I believe Z or V. I'll have to annotate it. And you adjust it right here on the side. This outer ring is what turns, and it's got these little notches so you can grab it, and you just click it along. It has 20 positions of adjustment. Oops. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So this is a frictionless system, like all the MagForce systems. There's nothing that actually touches the spool, unlike centrifugal systems where you actually have, you know, little plastic pieces rubbing. Nothing touches in these magnetic systems, and I like that. I'll open it up for you, and you can see the inside. And even something like this, when you unscrew it, you could feel the precision in the threading. It's just so, so smooth. Okay, we open it up. There's the magnetic assembly inside there. Here's the spool. And actually, guys, I'm going to cut out for just 1 second. I want to give you weights on the spool as well as the reel itself. I'll be right back. Now that I got it all apart, let me show you what things weigh. Here's the spool. Whoops. Helps if you turn it on. Okay. Spool, 1/2 ounce. In terms of grams, that's 15 grams. There are lighter spools out there, but what's really interesting about this is that I think a lot of guys are going to be throwing pretty large baits with a reel like this, and when you're hoisting a real heavy bait, you don't need a lightweight spool. I mean, the weight of that bait's just going to make it sail out there. However, 15, or it looks like it's moving around a little bit, 16 a second ago, is still very, very light, and that allows this to be a pretty dynamic reel, and that you can really effectively toss lighter lures as well. So it runs the gamut, heavy lures and light lures, equally effective. I just want to show you something on the inside here. Let me get the scale out of the way for just a second. If you see the drive assembly in there, the, what do I want to say, Shimano, they call a lot of attention to the X-ship, right? That's something that we're hearing a lot about, and they make a big deal of it here. They even have a nice big sticker, X-ship. It's nothing new, and I just kind of want to drive home this point. I've mentioned it in another video on one of my reels. X-ship just means that this is supported by 2 bearings. And that's the case. And you know that's happening when you reel it and it's perfectly in line, and then when it's not like kind of moving to the side, or you don't hear any kind of like grinding sounds. When that other bearing isn't in there, it allows it a little bit of play, and you'll be aware of it when you move the reel. So it has the 2 bearings there, aka X-ship. This, as you can see, is a free-floating spool, right? It doesn't have the pinion which extends on like some Shimanos. And so what that does is when you depress the clutch and that retracts, now this spool is being held by only 2 things. This bearing, it's riding on that, and it'll be riding on this end on that bearing. That's the only things that it's riding on. You know, Daiwa likes to say that this is going to give you a lot better casting performance, faster startup, all that kind of stuff. But realistically, between this and my Shimanos, I have 2 Chronarchs that have, you know, the spool that has the pinion that extends out. I really don't see to me those things cast exceptionally well, so I don't see that as being really an advantageous feature on the water. However, it is a little bit less mass overall for the spool, and so it just stands to reason that you have a lighter assembly here, and there should be a little bit of gain to be had in the free-floating spool. Let's put this back together. Come on. There we go. Okay. Just a couple other things I want to share with you here, guys. 2 really, really cool features. One is that independent of the gear ratio, I was saying earlier this is a 6:3 to 1. Independent of that, any manufacturer can choose the gearing or the speed at which the line guide moves back and forth. And this one is actually designed, they market it as such, as being designed for use with braid. Now it's pretty cool because what's happening here is that this is going to move really, really quick, and I'll show you a quick comparison. Actually, let's start with this guy. If I bring my line guide to the side, And I'm going to reel this, I'm going to do 5 revolutions of the crank, and let's see how far this gets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so it got to 1 and just started coming back the other way. Let me do 5 revolutions on this guy. Let's start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This actually is twice as fast. Whereas the Zillion was able to just go to one side, this one went to one side and all the way back. And if you ever see any reel that says that it's rated for braid, that's really what they're referring to. And what this is doing, the line guide is moving so fast that the line doesn't get a chance to really lay straight in line. It's almost always being pulled at little angles, and so it's less likely to dig into itself. So that's a pretty cool feature. And there's no real downside. You might say, well, does that inhibit my fluorocarbon or my copolymer or my mono? If there is, I can't tell the difference because I have another reel which employs a fast line guide, and it seems to really help with braid in having less dig in, but I don't see any downside to it when I use another type of line on that reel, so that's a pretty cool feature. And I think the last thing I want to show you is, I've been saving this for last, I think it's a really cool feature, is not only does it have clicking drag, okay, that's pretty standard, but it actually has click on when line is pulled. Very similar to a spinning reel. You know, when a fish is taking line or taking drag, you hear it. You have that auditory sound. The same has been built into here. They have a clicker on the spool. So if I hold this and if I move it, you could hear it. And another way to simulate that is if I hold the spool and if I reel it. Now, there's no performance advantage to having that, but it's something I always missed in baitcasters. I don't know about you guys, but I remember starting on like my first little Zebco spin cast, and then, when I graduated to my first spinning reel, all reels, it seems, when we start out, have a clicker. So whether you're catching your first bluegill as a little kid, or you get that little catfish or bass, you got that little, fiberglass pole bent over, we all had that kind of sound to go along with the feeling of the fish pulling on the rod. We always heard that, kind of clicking as the fish was taking line. And I remember when I switched to baitcasters, it was a surprise to me. I just assumed that it was on these. And I was like, oh, that kind of stinks. Like, I'd like to know. I like the sound of hearing that fish pulling line. Well, as we all know, with particularly bass fishing, a lot of times you do have your drag kind of locked down. And bass are fish that, unless you have a real trophy fish on, at least when you're using a baitcaster, you could typically horse them in pretty well. Different than on spinning gear, where we're usually using lighter hooks, lighter line, and sometimes we do have to let the fish take some line. But it's just something I always wanted. I always wanted to find a baitcaster that employed it, and this just worked out perfectly. It was in this, this reel, this round reel that I was looking for, and it has that clicker in there, so that just, I think it's a cool feature, and it worked out perfectly for me. Alright guys, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you on the Ryoga. Who is this reel for? Well, it's a very unique reel. It's one that you're probably not going to see the next guy fishing ever. You may see a Pluton, the domestic version of this, here and there, but you're almost never going to see the Ryoga. I certainly wouldn't get it for that reason alone, but if you're looking for its other attributes, if you maybe want to get, say first of all, if you like the traditional lines of a round baitcaster, everything is low profile now. Low profile has taken over, and rightfully so. It's more compact and it's doing essentially the same job, so why have a reel bigger than you need to? But I think there's a lot of us, particularly some people that are a little bit older, and we like the lines of some of the round reels. It is the traditional or the older school baitcast reel. I particularly like this one because it's so beautiful. It's kind of a marriage between smooth, elegant, round design, and then they kind of has like a juxtaposition of this angular, squared-off gearbox just coming out of nowhere, and it really works. It makes it look very, very powerful, and yet very eloquent and refined, and I just love the look of it. Apart from that, anything that's ever been written on the Pluton or the Ryoga is pretty much as high as praise as you're going to read on a reel. Again, I'll say it one more time. This is their flagship round reel. It is ridiculously smooth. It's very, very strong. and everything that you touch with or interface on it feels super, super precise. It's just really, it's a joy to look at, it's a joy to fish, it's a joy to own. And it's one of those reels that, you know, there's no reason why, if you take care of it, keep it maintained, that you can't have this for many, many years to come and potentially even pass down to your kids. It is an investment piece, it is an expensive reel, but if you ever want to treat yourself to something really unique, really beautiful, and supremely functional, I think the Daiwa Ryoga is an excellent choice. Alright guys, if you have any questions on this reel, please feel free to leave them in the comments. There's not a whole lot out there on it, and I'd be happy to help you in any way that I can. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.